Hello everyone, I'm going to use this time to talk about this idea here, and I am going to have you take notes, so you can pause the video and take out a sheet of paper. Take some notes on analysis. I'm going to talk about this, break it down exactly what we're talking about, and relate that to our lesson objectives and your IDs, so what you're turning in for your study guide every time we have a unit exam is solid. So let's look at your Unit 1 Late Middle Ages Study Guide. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lesson objectives. So what that means for this unit, when you turn in your work, I'll just collect your whole binder and I'm going to see notes for each section, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then at the end of those notes, I'll see a response that answers this question, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that answers those questions or response. So I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, and then the other thing I'll see from your study guide is IDs for all the terms from that unit. So there's 10 terms, which means there's 10 IDs. So I suggest getting in the habit of, as the lecture concludes or the reading ends, go back through and look, what IDs did you find? Like you would have found these from the first discussion about the High Middle Ages and the lecture. And then you go back and you do the IDs, not doing them all at once at the end of the entire unit, but doing them as we go. Okay? So those are the two things I'll collect. So for you, for your exam, it will be Monday for this unit, and I'm going to collect all of that on Monday. I'll tell you what's due for tomorrow's homework as well, but let's talk about analysis first. So I'm looking at your historical IDs handout here, and in historical IDs you're describing who, what, when, where, which is very basic. Those are facts. The analysis is the most important part. This question asks you to think critically. Okay, why does this idea matter? How does this event relate to other ideas or events of the time? How will this event, person, idea impact the future? So we're thinking about its impact right away, why it matters, and then how it will impact the future. So I'm going to copy this and paste this. You don't have to do this, but we'll break it down. So analysis, we're really thinking about a couple of things. Most important. So write these notes. Most important for analysis. 1. How this relates to other historical events. Another way to put that is, what's its impact on, and the easiest way to think of it is people, economics, religion, society, intellect, arts. And you don't have to highlight all those. If it's a political thinker, what is their impact on politics? If it's an artist, what is their impact on art? And usually art impacts society, okay? So what's its impact on those? And then thinking further, let's think about, did it have an impact on the future? Its impact on the future. So when we're thinking about analysis, we got to keep these things in mind. Okay. I paused and jumped ahead a little bit, but you can pause and take these notes. But for every study guide, you need these things. You need to respond to all lesson objectives at the end of your Cornell notes. And I want you to use this process every time. So this is a skill we have to get good at, breaking down the question. And that involves identifying the parts. How many parts are there to this question? And then brainstorming your answer. I'm sorry, that should be your response. It's not necessarily an answer. It's a response. And then the last thing is thinking about the analysis. Okay, so what's the impact on the future, or how did it impact Persia, or how this relates to other historical events? So let's do one of these. Let's create an example. So, example. I'm going to take the lesson objective we ended on in class, and break that down. So here's the lesson objective. This is an example from class. Lesson objective: analyze two major conflicts between France and England that led to the 100 Years' War and one major outcome of the war. So I'm going to record that and pause the video. Will you do the same in your notes? I know you've already done this, but please record it again one more time. Okay, so I've recorded my lesson objective, and what I want to see in your response section is the actual process. So if you've already done your responses, you can just do this process underneath and break down the question. So I want to think, what is this asking me to do? One, I need to analyze, and that means describe the impact. We're just going to start with that. That's the most important thing, the verb. And then how many parts? Identify the parts. We've got 3 parts total. 2 essentially conflicts. You could also call those causes. And 1 outcome. We could call that a result. Okay, so that's 2, 3. Brainstorm your response. Okay, so that's where I got to go back to my notes and think, what are some potential ideas for this? I'm just going to throw a couple out. Land disputes, succession issues, who's going to be king next, and that's enough for our brainstorm for now. And 4, I need to analyze. So I got to think, okay, what was the deal with land disputes and succession issues, and how might this have led to the 100 Years' War? I go back to my notes and I think land issues. Oh yeah. The problem was within France, England controls certain lands, and I can analyze and take that deeper and describe how this leads to issues. Then I think, what else? Oh yeah, there was that issue with Charles IV where he has no son, and then we got the issue of Edward, the King of England, marrying Isabella, his sister, and who's going to be the next king. That's right, okay. So I got some ideas from my notes, and I'm going to go back here. Land disputes, England owns former French land, French territories. That's an issue. Then we got Charles IV dies. English/French claims to crown. Okay, analysis. How do we go deeper? How do we take this a little bit deeper? Well, we got to expand on these ideas. England owns former French territories. Well, what's the problem here? And then Charles IV dies. English-French claims to the crown. What happens after that? So we got to take it a step further and explain what happens. So let's look at our example, and we're going to use this. One major conflict, this is what the author said, was the mixed marriages because it caused trouble over land, which is good. Another major conflict was propaganda because it made people believe things that were not true, which led to war. And then we get to the outcome for France was they got their land back, but in the process lost more people and money. An outcome for England was they lost their land but gained money and didn't lose as many people. We're going to use this as an outline and then add the analysis in. So I'm going to take this first sentence. One major conflict was the mixed marriages because it caused trouble over land. I'm going to go ahead and record the 3 major points, and I'm going to take off the last one because we only need one outcome of the war. So I'm going to record these 3 major points in my notes, and would you do the same? And then we're going to add the analysis to make this a short answer response that would definitely receive a point on the AP exam. So go ahead and record from the beginning to the second outcome here. Alright, so you've recorded this. One major issue were mixed marriages because it caused issues over land. And then these other 2. So let's bring our paragraph together. So I'm going to do analysis in red. So we got to think, okay, one major issue were mixed marriages because it caused issues over land. We have to explain that. We have to analyze and we can use our information. When Charles IV died, he had no male heir to the throne, and his sister, who would have ruled, well, I guess she would have ruled France, had married Edward III, the King of England. Okay, we still haven't quite analyzed. We're still explaining, so I might not even make that analysis. I'm still explaining the issue here, but it is getting towards analysis. So now we got to explain the issue. The French nobles did not want Isabella or Edward to rule, and they appointed their own king. And if you think about it, the real problem results years later when the new king eventually kidnaps the Duke of Aquitaine, a French territory, and this results in Edward declaring war. So the response does require that you go deeper with the analysis. It's one thing to make a claim, one major issue were mixed marriages because it caused issues over land, but we had to bring it full circle and explain how we got to the issue over the land, which was Aquitaine, the French territory, and this results in war. So second piece here, another issue that increased conflict was propaganda because it influenced people to believe things that were untrue. So again, we're going to add our analysis. Eventually, both countries use propaganda to demonize the other country and encourage their citizens to go to war. That works for enough analysis. We could take it deeper, but we're going to stop there. One major outcome for France was that they got their land back, but lost people and money, and then we got to think about how does this impact the future. So, just thinking about that in general, France would struggle for years to recover from their losses. While England, their now bitter rival, did not suffer the same losses and could rebuild their nation and economy much quicker. Okay, that's an example that I want you to have. That's all I want you to have in your notes. Okay, I want you to be thinking about when you finish your IDs. When you finish your IDs for this unit, you're thinking about analysis. Okay, how does this impact the future? So what's due Friday? I'm going to say I want all your IDs. So you're going to work through the IDs for the unit. You need to have these notes that we went over today. You can do them on Google Docs or whatever you'd like. Come with that to class and be ready to talk about this. And then we'll talk more about lesson objectives on Friday. Thank you. Good night.